Hey, it's Honey, and you know it. Doing double duty tonight because I have something really cool for you guys. This guy is a famous ufologist. Yep, ufologist. Believe in UFOs? Believe in aliens? Well, tonight we're going to hear from an author, speaker, someone who actually worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He's an engineer, and oh my God, he's amazing, of course, right? Or he wouldn't be on here. So let's get ready because here he comes. Hi, it's Honey Gregory, and welcome to my channel, Perpetual Learning, where we are always learning because if you're not learning, you're dying. And because I always bring the most amazing guests, I have another really fantastic guest. You're not going to believe it. He is an author, a speaker, an engineer, a ufologist. He worked at Wright Patterson Air Force Base, and the list goes on. He's the author of three amazing books. I can't wait for you guys to meet my new friend, Ray Szymanski. Did I do it right?
Well played. That's perfect. And the best ever. The be There you go. Congratulations.
You had me worried today. I was stressing all day. I was like, oh my God, I better pronounce it right.
I was just poking fun because, I knew about the dyslexia thing, but
Yeah.
your other guest, Zachary, was really cool. I enjoyed that. I learned a lot.
Yeah, Zach is really smart. He's a really really smart guy. He's in my BNI group. I'm hoping someday to get him to do some film stuff for my website if I can ever get that organized. But we're not here to talk about my silly computer problems. Oh my gosh! So I met you at the MUFON at the library, the MUFON event a few months ago, and I was just fascinated by how amazing you are and all your books.
I finally amazed somebody. That's really
And,
good.
and and you gave the best advice I've probably received in a long time. Don't look up when you hear the geese flying over.
That leads me to a story. Um, if I'm not sure who your audience is at this point, but if they're interested in flying saucers, then they've probably heard about Travis Walton. And Travis Walton was with six other individuals in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. They saw a flying saucer. Travis got out of the truck they were driving in, was taken away for 5 days, and he's world famous.
Oh
And
wow.
so I had Travis uh, sign a book for me, and he said, "Keep looking up." And I turned to him and I said, "Travis, I thought your advice would be don't go in that forest."
Right?
He
Right?
looked so confused.
I think I remember this story. So he was taken up, disappeared for 5 days, and he was found somewhere like totally disoriented. Didn't have any like he like totally missing time, couldn't remember anything, was telling his friends. Was some of his friends there too, and they didn't get taken, or they did, or I can't remember the whole story.
Okay, so there was seven loggers, and their job is to cut swaths in the forest. So if it catches fire, the fire can't jump this swath that they cut. It's a fire break.
Right.
So that was their job. And they were coming home late one night and they saw a bright glow in the forest. They immediately thought it was on fire. Well, that's
Mm.
bad if you're in the forest and your job is to clear trees.
Mm-hmm.
So they got up to it and they found a 30-foot flying saucer hovering about 10 feet off the ground.
Wow.
And Mike Rogers, who was driving the truck, stopped it, and Travis got out and ran towards the object. They were all screaming, "Come back." When this thing started to whir up, apparently was taking off, an electrostatic charge of sorts hit Travis in the chest and lifted him 10 feet in the air. Uh,
Wow.
Mike floored the truck thinking Travis was dead, that they'd get blamed for it. And when they came back an hour later to find him, he was gone. Now, Heber, Arizona is about 10 miles outside that location, the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. And that's where Travis was actually laid out on the highway,
Hmm.
not too far from the famous phone booth that he used to call his sister and brother-in-law to get him.
Oh my goodness. So tell me, is the phone booth now like a museum thing or something?
No, it's interesting. It became a tourist kind of site, and some people, as jerks will do, were defacing it. So
Mm.
they moved them to another location, which was next to it was next to a like a garage, a mechanic's place, and that guy kind of keeps an eye on it. So here's some trivia that only I know, and I'm going to share with your audience about Travis.
Ooh,
Interesting trivia.
exciting.
So it's one of the best books that you or anyone can read about flying saucers. It's called Fire in the Sky. It was written by Travis Walton. It's about 400 pages. And that book has had a million readers, and no one has found an error in it until I did.
Oh.
Yes. When Mike Rogers and those guys left the forest to call the sheriff and tell the sheriff they could not find one of their mates, they used a open phone on the side of a building that is on the road that comes out of the forest. So they would have gone right by it. There's a business and it has these two open phones. Well, when Travis wrote about it in his book, he was talking about how Mike Rogers was making the call, but was looking through the glass and watching it fog up because it was February.
Mm.
And I emailed Travis. I said, dude, where Mike made the call, it's not enclosed, it's open. So he types me back and he goes, "You are the only person to ever find a mistake in that book."
Oh, ooh, that makes you wonder, right?
Makes you
Hmm.
wonder. But if it was only one mistake, it's a great book. Everybody should read it.
Yeah, I think I've seen the documentary or something about it. But I've watched Ancient Aliens since day one, and actually, I just went to the Ancient Alien live show that was in Nashville, Indiana, recently, which was a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, when they came to Dayton, Nick Pope actually got me 4 VIP tickets, and I took my son and a couple of friends.
I'm jealous.
And then we got to see them afterwards. And Giorgio,
Uh
I'm
huh.
only bragging here. Nick had, I spent the afternoon with Nick and um, David Childress, and
Oh
I toured him
gosh,
around Dayton.
I'm so
So
jealous.
when I showed up, because of the good deed I did, Giorgio gave me one of those famous pins of his.
Yes, the little looks like the little airplane that they have out of
He
Egypt.
did. So
Oh my gosh.
we had a great time.
Ah, I just love him, even with his poofy hair. I swear, he's the best.
He's so much fun. I really like
I'm
Giorgio.
so jealous. I've always wanted to meet them, especially Travis. I've always thought Travis was so cute in his Texas accent.
Well, if we have a private conversation, I'll give you some backstory.
Ooh, all right. I'll call you
Yeah.
later.
All righty.
So, why don't we tell the audience a little bit about you and your backstory? How about that? Because you
Okay.
started off getting a job, right, at Wright Patterson, and you have a very interesting story about your first day there and how it got you into, UFOs and aliens.
Yeah, I worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for about 40 years.
Mhm.
Man, it makes me feel old just talking
Yeah,
about that.
right. Don't talk about
Yeah.
it.
So, of course,
Don't use the
uh,
word,
the word work.
the 40
Um,
word.
yeah, well, 38 years and 9 months, but as an engineer, we get to
Yeah,
round things up.
there you go.
So it was my first week, and I'm working with a guy named Al, who was a mid-level engineer. He's probably a GS 12 at that time. Now, foreshadowing, in years later, Al became a member of the Senior Executive Service. That's
Mm.
the military equivalent of a general or an admiral.
Oh, wow.
So
He's
he
up there.
attained, yeah, he was. He attained a very high position.
Hmm.
And during the first week, there were two buildings that were two-story office buildings, and in between was a hangar about 250 feet in length, which was not in use at the time. So to go from our building to get to the coffee shop, we had to walk through this very dark, long, deserted hangar.
Hmm.
And we step in, and Elle turns to me and said, "Have you heard about our aliens?"
You're like, what? What'd you say?
I'm just a punk 19-year-old kid from Detroit.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't,
Your chin hits
I'm,
the ground.
yeah, I'm not into it. And I thought he was pranking me. So
Right.
before pranking became popular,
Right.
I go, what do you mean? He said, well, in the 40s, there was a crash and they brought the wreckage and their occupants here to the base to be examined and possibly
Yeah.
exploited.
Roswell.
And I said, well, geez, where do they keep these aliens? He said, well, they're in a tunnel. Now that was another
Underground. They're
revelation.
underground.
We got tunnels? So I said, well, geez, Al, can we go see these aliens in the tunnels? He goes, no. All right, Al, why not? Um, well, it's a secret. Well, I was only 19, but I'm not totally naive. I said,
Right.
if they're a secret, Al, how do you know about them? He goes,
Why
well,
are we
it's a
talking about it?
it's a widely known secret. So apparently, because Project Blue Book had been at Wright-Patterson
Mm-hmm.
from like 1952 to 1969,
Yeah.
the local
Pilot.
television shows, news shows, newspapers, radio, they all carried that connection. So anybody and everybody who worked on base knew that Project Blue Book and the
Mm-hmm.
official Air
Mm-hmm.
Force flying saucer investigation was at Wright-Patterson. So
Mm-hmm.
that much was known, and it made great fodder for all the water cooler talk or the coffee pot talk.
Right.
So he was just kind of backfilling me on what he thinks he knew at the time. And I was kind of gobsmacked at that point. And so from that moment on, every time I had a chance to poke into a dark corner or ask somebody, I'm like, where's the aliens?
Looking, opening doors like, are they in here? Yeah, well, everyone, I mean, they've talked about this stuff for so long, and everybody's just like, oh, it's stories, it's made up, it's, it's this or that. But I think there's been enough whistleblowers now to know that most of this stuff's pretty true, even though they tried to put out disinformation and really, cloud the water.
Yeah, well, we know for a fact that at least the Roswell material came here because
Hmm.
um, we know the major who handled it, Marcel,
Hmm.
said it went to Wright-Patterson, and it went through this office in Fort Worth, the 8th Army Air Corps
Is
headquarters.
that at Carswell? Or was
Yeah,
it?
formally that was formerly Carswell. I don't know
Yeah.
what it's called.
Yeah.
In fact, I think General
There's
Dynamics or whoever.
Convair, Coswell. What was the other names out there? Yeah. Yeah.
So Marcel was to escort the material there, and then the chief of staff also signed a legal affidavit, which whatever the weight that carries. But he signed a legal document stating that um, the balloon story was a cover up, that the materials that were in the pictures that went to the newspaper was not the same material that Marcel had brought to Fort Worth with him, and basically blew the lid off of it. And then the same general went on a video, he had already signed the legal papers, and a number of years later was interviewed just before his death, and he's re-emphasized, he said, it was a cover up. The balloons weren't the same, and the material went to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So two people who were in the loop, who actually handled it and were responsible, said that it went to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So we know that for sure. We know
Yeah.
that's a fact.
Yeah. I went there with my daughter because I've always wanted to go for this reason and many others. But being an Air Force brat, my daughter and I went a few years back on a field trip. And I'm walking through there the whole time going, I wonder if the aliens are around here somewhere.
You were closer than you thought you were.
I know, right? I know they're there. I mean, I know there have been there. I don't know if they're still there. I'm assuming they're probably still there, but there's a lot of people now say a lot of it's been moved out to Denver, under the Denver airport.
Oh, I don't know about that, but think about this. Back in 1947, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was the place for aeronautical engineering and materials. In
Mm.
fact, their materials lab was actually founded in 2000 in 1917. So by
17?
Yeah, in 1917 is when the materials laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was developed. So by 1947, they would have already been in the business for 30 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it
Uh,
makes sense that that's where you would take it.
right. And at that point, they had all the expertise. They had security oaths. They had money. They had vaults, whatever you needed, equipment. But as time went on and all of this testing equipment became less expensive, then other locations within the government and private contractors could also own this type of equipment. So today, if something crashed, you know, if they need a some kind of analysis of it, they don't need to bring it to Wright-Patterson Air Force
Hmm.
Base. They could go to a junkyard and point one of their devices at it, and they'll tell them what the metallic composition of it is.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff that only the governments could do way back then.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, and there's supposedly we retrieve downed spacecraft all the time, especially from like Mexico and other places. Like we cross the border and go in and get it and take it back. They say there's all these reports coming out of like Mexico where the American military comes in and scoops it up, puts it on the trucks, covers it up, and takes it right back into the United States and heads towards, obviously, a base or something. So where else would they take it other than where they've
Well,
been taking it? I mean, that would make sense.
Well,
That's right.
Kecksburg with the big acorn thing that happened, in 1965, I think it was December of 1965, that was put on a flatbed, came through Columbus, came to the base. There are many stories of that.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't let me in, so I actually didn't personally put my finger on it, but I'm sure that that was taken for many decades to
Yeah.
Wright-Patterson for
Yeah.
sure.
And so, what made you decide to start writing about it?
Um, well, I was always interested in it, and there was just a lot of traction. I would talk to individuals, and I'm talking about well-placed people, say within the intelligence community, and I would come across something, or somebody would send it to me, and then if I needed an expert, because I had established a personal rapport, at one point in my career. I was the wellness director for the base-wide wellness program for all 15,000 civilians at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Wow, wellness director.
Yeah. Now, what happened is I had started this small little wellness program within a directorate that I was in, and the head of Air Force Research Labs saw the progress I was making. We had a group of nurses on the base,
Mm,
and they would go out and they would do blood pressure, cholesterol testing, non-intrusive things. And then that got spun up from my directorate. The lab commander, now in charge of places all over the country, said, "Can you scale this up? Not only here on the base, but can we have all these other attachments?" And so, out to Boston, out to New Mexico, out to Florida, and I spun these things up, and I got contracts with local nursing organizations, testing facilities. And then a new base commander came in and he got word of this program that I had launched and brought me in and said, "Can you spin this up for the entire base?"
mm.
And I go, "Well, I'm a research scientist." Go, "Yeah, you're the perfect guy." So they made an arrangement of an executive exchange. So the base commander, I went to work directly for Colonel Spacey for 2 years, and I spun up the program for Wright Pat. Well, here's what it did for me. I was one of only a handful of people that was allowed to send an email to the entire base population,
Oh, wow.
which is a lot of pressure because it was all the civilians and all the military. It was over 30,000 people.
Oh, wow.
You did not want to make a mistake in an email because they would laugh you out of Dodge.
Never
But
hear the end of it, right?
no, but what that did is it gave me base-wide recognition.
Mm,
Everybody knew who I was because of the programs I've spun up.
mm-hmm.
So then when it became time, I then went back for a couple of years to my regular job before I retired. I met so many interesting people doing interesting things I never would have met before. So I kept those contacts. And when something would come across my desk, I'd go, hey, you remember me from the wellness thing? They go, yeah, I got something I want to bring to your attention. It might be, oh, the guy that was in charge of all the antiquities on the base. I became buds with
Hmm.
him. Intelligence people. People sent me stuff I never thought I would get. So I was able then to dig down and go, oh, there's just a lot more to this than I even
Mm-hmm.
suspected.
Mm-hmm.
Who's doing what or what they did and that sort of thing.
Well, these
So
bases are usually very compartmentalized. Everybody's got their own little thing that they're in charge of, and no one really knows everything that's going on. But you had access to everybody.
people like to tell me something because they knew that I was not an expert then because I hadn't written, but you asked the question, what finally made me decide to do this? Well, what happened is I never wanted to write a book. I went out investigating simply to prove to myself if there was anything to what I'd heard around this water cooler or what people were telling me or sending me stuff. Was there any basis in fact?
Mm-hmm.
And so my approach was to take big stories, the Rendlesham story, the Travis Walton story, the incident at Exeter,
Mm-hmm.
Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and poke holes in them.
Try to debunk them, prove that they're not real.
That was my approach because it seemed simpler than trying to prove that they were real.
Well, yeah, right. Because but then when you start digging into it, you find that people's stories haven't changed. There's too much evidence that collaborates everybody's stories. There's too many eyewitnesses.
Well, I went to Exeter and I found the son of the man who was made famous in the book Incident at Exeter. And on the property where this famous Exeter incident happened, I'm standing feet away from the driveway over which the flying saucer hovered for Norman Muscarello. And the son of the man who was in the book is telling me all about it because he was in the house at the time.
Oh, wow.
And then he introduced me to people who were witnesses but didn't come forward because they had a high profile job somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the same thing with Rendlesham Forest. I went to Rendlesham. I dug
Mm.
around. I talked to John Burroughs and Colonel Halt and Jim Penniston. In fact, Penniston is the endorser of my latest book.
Mm.
So I not only was on site and did some digging, um, but I got to talk to the three guys who are the experts.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I spent a day with Travis Walton at the site,
Yeah.
and I had many other, encounters with him. So, as you said, the more I dug down and talked to the experts, the more evidence I found.
Right. And you found some evidence that other people hadn't found, right?
Well, I actually found some evidence that I saw Ben Hansen touting in a TV show the other day. I
Oh,
went,
really?
dude, dude, that's my stuff.
Oh, he stole it. Oh my
But
gosh.
I'm okay with it. Yeah. The day I went there with Travis, I was shooting still pictures for Jen Stein, and she's the one that did that movie, Travis Walton, the
Mm-hmm.
latest movie and the
I think
best
that might have
movie.
been the one I saw because it's sounding really
I think
familiar.
it is. I
Mm-hmm.
think we might have chatted about that briefly.
Mm-hmm.
So, what they had done is people had taken samples from trees. Mike Rogers, who drove the truck that day that Travis went off, took chainsaws and cut a triangle, big chunks out of certain trees as evidence. He wanted to keep that for posterity. Well, they cut some of the trees down, and I noticed that the rings of the trees grew exponentially larger in the direction that the UFO was hovering.
Oh my goodness.
And I took and
Because of
Travis,
radiation.
because probably because of
Yeah.
radiation.
Yeah.
So I took these photographs, and Travis was there pointing out which trees, and then I had the liberty and to do what I wanted to. And then I was plotting these like a little science experiment. And when we got back, um, I wrote it up and I sent it to Jen Stein and said, if you can use this for the movie, fine. And I'd already seen her movie, but it was a pre-cut. It wasn't fully released yet.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, in part of the movie, she used that little science experiment that I did with
Hmm.
Travis, and there's pictures of it in there. And of course, I got a nice, really a film credit, which was
Oh,
really cool.
yeah.
So I did that. I did that for her in 2012, maybe
Mm.
2013. I think it was 12 or 13. And then I see a clip with Ben Hansen, and he's got my photograph. Although I will tell you that every tree stump looks the same if you shoot
Right?
it with the camera. But then he goes, but then now, so this is like the video he's in is like 2019. Well, that's years after I released my stuff to Jen and it was in the movie,
Mm.
and I go, you hijacked that, dude.
Yeah, totally. Totally. It was good. That's why I did it.
It was
It
it
was
was real good.
good.
And actually, that little story of me and Travis and being on the site with him and the photographs, a couple of them of those tree stumps, it's in my first book, 50
Okay.
Shades of Grays.
And I have your books because it was so lovely meeting you and you autographed them for me. So I have them.
Well,
Do,
thank
do,
you.
do, 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 and you autographed it so lovely. Oh, yes. Yes. And so, I mean, I've been flipping through, reading a little here, a little there, and I can't wait to send them to my dad. I think I told you that. My dad was 33, I think, years in the Air Force. And he and I have conversations all the time because I'm always going, okay, Dad, you've been out long enough. Tell me the truth. When you're out there on the flight line, you saw UFOs, right? Tell me, tell me, tell me, where are they at? And he always says, I didn't see anything, you know, but then he tells me his stories about when he saw some as a child. And so I'm always asking him too, like, um, you know, why do we have a space force? Unless there's stuff out there in the space we need to protect ourselves from, you know. And
Good
so,
question.
right. And then the other day he said, well, it's because we have bases on Moon and Mars or something like that. I think he's just making stuff up just to appease me, but I can't wait for
Good.
him to read them. But you have three amazing books. And
Thank you. And if he
and
has,
I love the name. I mean, you know, 50 Shades of Grays with the spelling, you know. Um, is phenomenal and I love it. And then this one is the one about the woman who was abducted, right? It was a generational abduction where she was
correct,
being
Victoria's
abducted.
Secret Truth. And her
Oh,
name is Victoria.
that is just so spooky, phenomenal, scary, but my God, it's so interesting, you know? Um, and I look at these pictures that she drew and hear her story and it blows my mind.
That
And then
little
you're,
boy that's in that book,
yeah,
Bobby,
yeah.
he's now 6'3".
What? Oh
Yes,
my gosh.
he's late
That's
in
her
high
son
school.
or grandson? I forget.
Grandson.
Grandson. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking. Oh, here he is. Is this him? I think this is him.
That's him.
Yeah.
And
He's the
some of
one
the
that
pic
was having sightings of his own, like when he was like 2 or 3 years old or
they
something. I
came
was trying
into
to
his
remember.
room through a locked window. They floated into the room, and then they floated him down 3 flights of stairs and laid him on a coffee table. And then they said he said they put a booger up his nose, but she thinks they put an implant because he had a bloody nose the next day.
Oh.
And he's had these uh, bloody noses, a series of them that he never had before, this incident. And so she thinks that he got an implant up his nose that night.
Yeah, if my audience hasn't read that one, you've got to read that one. And then the first one you did is like a compilation of some different stories, right? That one is
Yes,
like multiple stories.
I covered incident at Exeter, Travis Walton, Rendlesham Forest, and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Yeah, the one that happened in England, Rendlesham Forest, I've seen a lot on that. That one is really fascinating. Um, that's the one where he touched the saucer or whatever you want to call it, and then he had that download right of all the binary numbers, the ones
Correct.
and zeros, wrote them
Jim,
down, and then years later found his papers and
yeah, Jim Pennison touched. There was a series of glyphs. It was a triangular shaped craft, about 10 foot aside, 8 foot tall. And he put his hand on the biggest glyph and he got a white flash in his head. Then, when he went home after writing his report and doing everything in the orderly room like the security police do, he went home and he took out a notebook. And in the notebook, a free flow of ones and zeros came to him and he just wrote it down. He didn't know why. He didn't know what ones and zeros were except ones and zeros.
Mm-hmm.
And then that memory stayed repressed for a couple decades until he got into the discussion with John Burroughs. And John Burroughs said, "This looks like code." And they had it
Mm-hmm.
decoded. It was binary code, and it basically laid out all of these special places around the world. It's fascinating. It's just
Yeah, I've seen, I forget, it was something exploration humanity, blah blah blah, or something crazy like this, and it's like,
like it's like it's us from the future.
right? It's like them coming here checking on us to see what we're doing wrong. Probably everything.
A lot.
Yeah. So this
A
one's
lot.
got four really amazing stories, and these you were trying to pick apart
That's correct.
and prove that they were not real, not accurate. And what was your conclusion?
Well, I concluded that I had information that I needed to share.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would talk to somebody about this, I go, You need to collect this and put this in a book."
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought about why would I do this? And my motivation initially is there's so much disinformation out there. And I mean, state-sponsored disinformation and
Mm-hmm.
misinformation about this whole UFO thing, as we now know, because they officially said, "Oh, yeah, flying saucers are real." But it was intellectually insulting. And I knew people that thought that they had experiences, but thought they were crazy because it can't be true because the government says it's not true. And
Mm-hmm.
I hate bullies. And I thought, you know what? This is my first, it's going to be a mouse level thing doing it, but I'm going to strike back against all these debunkers and all these bullies that are getting paid by somebody on the
Mm-hmm.
dark side to go on television and tell all these lies. And that
Mm-hmm.
was my chief motivation for publishing that first book.
Yeah, I love that because it's ridiculous. Well, I know when they did that, the world of the War of the Worlds experiment, supposedly, where everybody went crazy, the radio show.
Right, back in the
Uh,
40s.
yeah, and everyone went nuts, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, that proves we're not ready." But I think, hello, by now we are more than ready. Most people already seen it, believe in it. I mean, I've seen my own UFOs. I even had someone tell me, "Oh, you're a professional. You shouldn't tell people that." I'm like, "No, I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing that game. I saw it. I know what I saw. I did. If people think I'm crazy, that's their problem, not mine. I know what I saw with my own eyes." So, and then you
Well,
have sorry.
yeah, do you want to talk about that now or,
Well, we've got, let's see. I want to talk about your other book real
yeah,
fast, and
let's go
then
through
we
that.
got
Sure.
6 minutes, and then we can keep going if we want. We just click on the thingy again. And then your third book. This one's more your most recent, and I love the title, by the way. That is phenomenal. Um, but this is what we are just talking about. Oh, it's just swamp gas, really? I mean, are we really that dumb that we're supposed to believe this? You know,
No, nobody did, but they got away with it because there were no avenues to dispute this.
right?
President Ford took that swamp gas explanation. He called everybody to Congress. The Secretary of the Air Force, Major Quintanilla, who was heading up the Blue Book, Dr. Hynek, who told a lie, and they all told the same lie when they got in front of Congress. But
Mm-hmm.
Congress was too ill-informed to know that.
Mm.
And so what could the people do? That was the end. Congress is their representatives. It
Mm-hmm.
died on the vine.
Well, maybe that not very many people were really read in. Even now, they say that the presidents aren't always read in. About the UFOs and the aliens and underground bases. It's on a need to know. I mean, I love that
Correct.
movie with Will Smith. That's it's like when I watched that, I was like, yeah, finally someone is saying it.
I just watched that movie while I was on the road 2 days ago. I was in a
Independence
pl
Day.
I watched the first Men in Black, and it's
Oh, Men in
hilarious.
Black. Oh, I love
It
Men
was
in Black.
yeah, it was Men in Black when he tests used a neuralizer because he he had a public thing where he started blowing up trucks with the noisy cricket.
Yeah.
And now he had to gather all these people. And Kay says, you gotta, and so he goes, it was swamp gas that was brought in by a weather balloon. And he
Yes.
puts all of those together in like
Yes.
one explanation.
Right. Oh my gosh. I know. It's one of the best scenes in the whole movie. Hysterical. Or she talks about the Edgar suit, all I'm just that's just the funniest movie. Oh my gosh. Well, my dad's really going to love this one because this one's about those two pilots that one of them I think was passing away and you got the story. You got the scoop on the story and he shared all that with you. So,
Yeah, I interviewed him for over 30 hours.
wow, that's
And,
crazy.
and I also got the official document, the memoirs of his wingman that day.
Mm,
So I dealt with the live guy and all his stories on all the official records, and then the perspective from his wingman that day, and the wingman's official records through the grace of his family.
mhm. Mhm. I like the fact that people are finally on their deathbed. And I know it's sad that they have to wait till then because of all the paperwork they sign, non-disclosures or whatever, and the threats to their life and their kids and their, livelihood because it's destroyed so many people, which is not right. And but I'm glad that even at the end, finally at the end. But then a lot of people go, yeah, they were delusional. They're just making stuff up. But I don't buy that. I think they're at their end and they're like, you can't hurt me anymore. And the truth needs to be told.
Well, Colonel Carroll's story on Swamp Gas My Ass would have died with him.
Mm.
What happened is I found him.
Oh.
I actually discovered him through a series of resources and went up to his house, introduced myself, told him who I was, told him I wrote these books, and that I had heard that he was a pilot that flew these interceptors for a living, and that my source had told me he may have been stationed at Selfridge Air Force Base in the mid 60s. Well, the dots were all coming together because that's when the swamp gas thing happened. That's where
Mm-hmm.
Selfridge Air Force Base was the closest one there. Anyone was scrambled, they would have been the guy scrambled. So I just quickly put this together. And then after he read both of my books, he realized how I was going to treat the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he said, I've got a story to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have died with him had I not found him.
Wow. Lucky you got a hold of him when you did. My gosh.
Mm, luck really didn't have a lot to do with it.
Hard work got a hold of him.
You know how that is. You're a hard
Yeah.
worker.
Thank you.
Yes.
So this is so amazing. And so you were telling me about the pilot who passed away and how you discovered him and were able to get a hold of him and get his full story before he passed and all the memoirs.
Well, Colonel Carroll had spent 30 years in the Air Force, most as a fighter interceptor pilot, highly decorated. And, there's always some information floating about the ether. And people are always, hey, I had this sighting or I heard this. And then pieces of information came to me about a gentleman who didn't really live that far from me, would be very convenient to run down.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got a name and I was able to do some research and find a couple of things out there in the public domain, it's easy to find somebody's address. So I did. I decided to run him down. And
Nice.
I went over to his house. I introduced myself and we became very, very good friends. And it wasn't until we started the process that he actually had been diagnosed with cancer. He was feeling
Mm.
ill and he didn't know. So we were already partway into the process, maybe a couple of interviews. And so then I knew I was chasing, the Undertaker at that point because we didn't know
Yeah.
how much time he had.
Yeah. Well, so when you were doing this 30 hours, were it like 1 or 2 hours here, 1 or 2 hours there when you were meeting with him?
Exactly. What I
Yeah.
would do is I would interview him, and it was high tech. I had my cell phone. I put it on the video with a little stand that I made out of cardboard and something else.
Oh, you're better than me because I probably would have showed up with my big old fashioned push the button and got the tapes going around because I still have one of those. Probably have it in my drawer here. Oh, I do. I would have been me. Okay.
But they're
1980s, here I come.
hey, the 80s called. They want their recorder back.
Well, you know what? I thought I was being all right. I thought I was being all clever, so I got me a digital one. To this day, I can't figure out how to use it.
No.
I swear. I turn it on, I think I'm recording something, and then I try to play it back, and nothing's there.
You need a teenager to help you
I
figure
have
that
one,
out.
thank God, or I wouldn't be able to use my phone. So you were
Uh,
just traveling around the world because you and I met, and then you took off and went around the world. Tell us about this amazing speaking trip you did where you traveled all over the place.
um, let me see how I can answer this. I went to England for 10 days,
Mm,
and I went to Italy for about 10 days.
wow.
And I was given access uh, to some property upon which a flying saucer may or may have not landed.
Oh, wow.
And so I spent a couple of really hard days researching that, talking to people, looking for evidence and that sort of thing. And um, I will say that I came up empty with respect to exactly what I was looking for,
Mm,
but I found some other very interesting things that have nothing to
mm,
do with flying saucers.
mm-hmm.
Uh, but I made some very good friends, and I have an open invitation to go back, and I'm hoping to go back very soon. So
Wow.
that was really, really cool. And I went to Sutton Hoo, and Sutton Hoo is where a Saxon, East Saxon king died, and they buried his ship and all his treasures in a hillside. And then a woman who bought this property and had this mansion built walked out one day and said, "What is this strange looking hill doing here?" So she hired an archaeologist, and he started digging, and he discovers this
Oh, my gosh.
Saxon king um, buried there. And so the nice thing is after visiting there and doing my investigation, I had a need to contact the antiquities people in that area. And so I made that contact, and I learned a whole lot about, what I might be finding when I'm looking for this crash flying saucer.
Oh, wow.
So that was cool. And I went to Stonehenge and Avebury Henge, and I went to Marlborough, which is this place that was probably built in the 1500s, and stayed in a little hotel that was built in the 1600s.
Oh, wow.
And every board in the place squeaked.
Oh, my gosh.
It's
That's that old.
the spookiest, hauntiest place I've ever been.
Mm.
And all the steps and the floors are like, you feel like you're eternally drunk
Oh, my gosh.
because there's no flat spot. And so England was cool, and I did London, I did a bunch of things, but mostly in the museums, because the real stuff from Sutton Hoo is in the British Museum.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my first stops, because I wanted to see and photograph the real stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I did that. And then I touched base with the guy who actually helped Colonel Halt write his book, John
Mm.
Hanson.
Mm-hmm.
John Hanson wrote the book with Colonel Halt on Rendlesham, so I
Wow.
exchanged pleasantries with him. Then I did a talk in Cremona, Italy.
Yes, I heard about this.
Cremona, Italy is where the violin was created, invented.
No way.
And there's a museum there called the Stradivarius Museum.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah,
in
who
that,
doesn't know about the Stradivarius, right?
everyone
Supposed
knows
to be the
about
greatest in the world.
the greatest in the world.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out there's three of them in the Stradivarius Museum that were made by the master.
Oh wow.
And it's really cool because they've got them as you come in to the museum. It's one of the last things you'll see, and you see how they put this together, how they select the wood, how they age it, all the components, how everything's put together. And there's all these great digital things, and you can just get in there and almost become a master yourself of
Hmm.
knowledge about this. Well, um, the lady who is my interpreter, who is a my translator, who is a she's a star. Um, Sabrina Peragostini. She has four books
Wow.
on the supernatural, and she was my translator for my presentation, but
Cool.
also my guide.
Nice.
And so we did the museum together. And when we get to the point where the three cases with the Stradivarius are, one of them is empty. And despite the fact that Sabrina is a former nationally known um, a television announcer, a media personality, she can be a clown, and it's hilarious. So we get to the case where it's empty, and she's like, it's empty, like it's stolen. And then I
Oh
go,
no.
it's the Pink Panther. And so we're
Oh,
clowning around.
oh, that sounds like so much fun.
Well, we figured it out because every once in a blue moon, a violin master will play one of those Stradivarius
Mm.
violins in the little tiny auditorium that they have inside the museum.
Oh wow.
And the day we were there was one of
No.
those blue moons.
Oh my gosh. So you got to actually hear it.
8 rows back, guy comes out, got the Stradivarius that they had taken out of the case with just enough time for him to tune it. And we had a half-hour concert with this guy playing the most wonderful
Oh
music
wow.
ever.
I just miss Europe so much because of things just like that. Like I mean, America's great. I don't want to get any, negative comments or anything. But, when I lived in Europe and England and Switzerland and got to travel in Spain, gosh, there's just things like this that you just don't experience anywhere else.
You
Like the
can't.
museums, they're phenomenal. I want to go in the basements of the museums.
Me too. I'll be right behind you. And
Who,
and
who do
then
we know? Let's go.
and then when we get arrested, you can be the legal representation. I want to talk to my lawyer.
And I'm like, me too. Where's, oh, wait a minute. What?
Well, you know what they say? He who represents himself in court has a
It's
fool
a
for a
fool for a
client.
client, right?
So Sabrina was great fun. And then
Oh,
we did the talk at like one of the town halls in Cremona. I would say we had about maybe 60, 70 people show up.
wow.
The next day, it was in the newspaper
Mm-hmm.
where I was anointed the UFO expert in the United States.
Ooh,
I'm kind of important now.
you are so important now. I love it. Oh, I bet you were great because when I saw you were great. You were great. You were well. And I was like, I gotta have him on my podcast. He's awesome. And then when you put on, because it's funny thing is that you had that black suit on, and I kept going, why does he remind me of the guy from Men in Black? And then you put on the shades and you got your little flashy thingy out, and I'm like, oh, this is great.
This is how we're going to close the show today.
Oh, I
I
love it.
I have my
Well, you got to flash.
neuralizer.
You got to flashy thing us because we know too much info now.
We do. I will clear your mind. So we're in Cremona, and I had sent my presentation beforehand
Mm.
so she could translate it. So I would read for a slide, and then she would translate that. Perfectly smooth. Everything went great. Then they did an interview with me, and afterwards, Sabrina's husband dubbed his voice. So he reads, writes, speaks English. So she did the um and she did the interview in English, and then they both overdubbed it. So later I will send you, and it's hilarious. My lips are moving with perfect Italian.
uh,
It's
That is so
mind blowing.
cool. But that sounds just like something the Italians would do because when I took Italian film in college, they're masters at this kind of stuff. They're masters. That's
And it's
phenomenal.
it's great. It's her husband doing the overdub, and I've met him before. His name's Carlos. He's a great guy.
That's so cool. Well, I'm so jealous because I wish I was there hanging out with you guys.
What was your favorite place? In
When
in,
I
in
lived there
Yeah.
or when I was visiting. Well, let's see. Mm, I still would have to say France. I mean, I really love France. I really loved going to Paris because I took my LSAT there. I took the LSAT there. But I lived in Brumley, just south of London, and London was great. I mean, the old world. When you think about how, like Napoleon walked on these streets, you know what I mean? Like when you're in England and you're going, oh my God, Napoleon was here, and there's his statue. I mean, there's just it's just mind blowing. I don't know. Everything's so great. The only thing I didn't get to do, I really wanted to do, is I wanted to go to Italy. I got close in Switzerland. I was just on the border right there, Switzerland and
Yeah.
Italy, but I didn't cross the lake and go over. But I always wanted to go to, what is that island that where the giants are? Is it Sardinia? No, is that it? Or is it Corsica? What is the
Malta?
island?
Is
What
it
is the
Malta?
island where
Colossus.
that all the
Rhodes.
giant bones are found of the giants of the Nephilim or giants or whatever they
Eh,
call them?
I'm showing
Oh,
my ignorance here. I can't recall, but
I
I
always
know
wanted to
what you're
go there.
talking about.
Yeah,
I've heard about it.
yeah, it's really cool. But they still find in Italy giant bones,
You
bones
want
of
to you,
giants.
you want to get to Italy? It's
Yeah,
amazing. It
yeah.
nothing but Roman ruins, no matter where you go. And
Oh,
like
yes.
here, we'd have an armed guard and a line, from Pittsburgh to Atlanta to get in, and it's just like they go, oh, it's just another piece of a Roman column. Don't worry, it's laying in the street. We'll get to it.
Yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, like even when I was in Switzerland and we would travel, um, we'd be out hiking somewhere, and there would be like a piece of a half a castle. You know, and I'd be like, "What
The
is that?"
castle.
Oh, that's ruins from such and such castle, or the Romans, or whatever. And I'm like, "What? It's just right there."
Just just laying there. What? There's no glass in front of
Like
it, no armed guard?
I'm hiking up this hill, and there's this ruins of a castle. You're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I lived in Arlesheim, and there were literally castle ruins half a mile from where I lived, and we would walk over there.
It's so intriguing, isn't it?
There's ruins.
I just want to grab my metal detector and find things.
Oh, right. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, everybody's
Yeah.
going to want to know. And if I don't say the question right, you fix it.
Okay.
Have you seen aliens or UFOs yourself anywhere at any time?
Yes. Um,
Okay.
one I'm absolutely sure of. The other one, not so much. So, I was up early. My son and I had a 7 a.m. tea time. I'm up in Michigan in a place we're out in the country, uh, hardly get any cell phone service. And I'm looking up and I've got the heavens above list and I'm looking for USA 242. It's a spy satellite and it's supposed to show up due west. It's supposed to show up at about 45 degrees off the horizon. And sure enough, it shows up exactly when and where. And I recognize the brightness. And then I realize it has company. So if it's a one on the brightness scale, these two objects that were with it were 50s,
Oh, wow.
like uh, welding torches. And so I saw the satellite and then these two objects, and they were all in sync. They all went from left to right until I lost them behind a tree line and never to be seen again. And then in 2010, I was coming home from a therapy appointment. I had a car wreck,
Oof.
had a herniated disc in my neck, and they were doing things to try to make sure I didn't have surgery.
Oh, yeah.
So I was coming home, and it was one of those gray days in December where the ceiling, you've been there, it's Midwest, and the clouds seem to almost touch the ground, and it's just hanging above this two-story building on my way home. And I had the sunroof of my car open, not the roof, but just the blocker, the shade, and something broke the daylight over my car. And I thought, well, that's weird because we get a lot of airplanes. I don't live 2 miles from the base. There's no noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming to a traffic light, so I'm hitting my brake, trying not to hit the car in front of me. And I'm looking down past my roof and looking up, and there was, I could only describe it as the back end of the Batmobile.
Interesting.
And I eventually, because of my sighting, and I saw how much width it took, and the building was like within a mile of where I live, so I could go back and I get my long tape measure, and I determine how long the building was and the height and everything, and then I could determine how big this craft was.
Wow.
So it was about 7 to 8 seconds of this 90-foot wide craft, maybe 20 foot tall, gliding into the next cloud bank, and all I saw was the back end of it.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Definitely.
yeah, it was about 200 feet in front of me and only about 100 feet or less off the ground.
Mm,
It was that low.
yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I had my own experience with my daughter. I think I kind of told you.
No, all I ever get was is I've had this experience.
Oh,
I-
well, I've had a couple, so um multiple, but anyway, my daughter when she was little, we went to a 4th of July picnic for a networking group that I'm in. And I don't know, she's 5 or 6 years old. And it's like 2011, 12 time frame, give or take. And um we were there all day, and beautiful, beautiful day. They had music and food and blah blah blah, typical 4th of July picnic thing. And it was getting late, and the sun was going down, and she was getting tired, and so was mommy. And so I said, "Okay, well, honey, let's go." So we pack up our little, stuff and our chairs and stuff, and we go to the car. And we'd got there so early that we were literally parked next to the homeowner's driveway, right there by the house. And
Cool.
we put everything in the car and we're fixing to get in. And she goes, "Mom, you have to go potty." I'm thinking, okay, it's a 45-minute drive home. We better go. So we run back in. I leave everything in the car. We run back in the house. We go to the bathroom. We come back out. We're walking, and they had just cut down like a row of big trees. And so I'm telling her, I'm looking at the ground. I'm saying, "Honey, be real careful. Don't trip over these stumps," because they were sticking up about 2 or 3 inches. And we were walking over their driveway into the field that was adjacent to the house, and because we were parked right there by the house in the field. And I'm looking down, and it's getting dark, right? So in the east it's black, and in the west you got just a little bit of lightness in the sky and a little orangey glow. And all of a sudden she looks up and she goes, "Mommy, what's that?" And I'm looking down. I'm like, "I don't know, honey. It's probably a stump." And she's, "Oh, mommy, up, look." So I look up, and I see off to my right this giant. It looks like a giant floating BB, like it was gunmetal gray, and it was huge. No wings, no lights, nada, nothing. Just as if someone took a giant BB and just was holding it in the sky, you know? And it was huge. I am not good at measurements, but I would say it wasn't that high, 20, 30 feet off the ground, maybe a little higher. And it came from over there, and it just went at a very steady pace across the sky. And we stood there watching it, and everybody else around us just stopped. Everybody just kind of stopped, like, "What are you looking at?" I'm like, and we're all just frozen, kind of watching it. And it just slowly went across the sky. And it was just because the sky behind it was like that grayish blue, yellowy gray blue. You could just see it's this giant, massive. I mean, my arms aren't doing it any justice. It was huge thing going across, and not a sound. No evidence of wings, no evidence of engines, nothing. Literally a flying giant sphere in the sky. It wasn't a balloon, not a balloon at all. There was no basket. It wasn't teardrop shaped. There was no apparatuses attached of any kind or shape or at all whatsoever. And we watched it. And as it got over the cornfield a little bit more, we stepped up a little bit and watched it. And we watched it from the back of my car go all the way across the cornfield. I don't know, 10, 15 acres away. There was like a tree line on the horizon because so we couldn't see past that. And it went slowly over those trees, and then you couldn't see it anymore. So I don't know if it landed or just kept on going. And so I'm thinking, holy moly, what? Obviously it had a motor in it because it was not flipping and flopping around through the breeze, the wind, and it was a perfect steady path. And so I got in my car, and drove down the road and went down the other road to see if we could see it because would have been running parallel with the road. But when I got down to the end of the farmland where the cornfield was, where the tree line was, nothing was there. So I don't know where it went. I don't know if it kept going or what, but we kept going down that old road, never saw anything else. So it was bothering me for a couple of days. So then I went and Googled, and someone did pop up and say, I saw this giant sphere, but they said it was like a golden orange. And when they described where they were on the other side of it, half a mile or a mile away in one of those country houses over there. And so we saw it from the dark side, from the east side of the object, and they saw it from the west side of the object. So to us, it just looked gray, and to them, it looked like it was glowing.
because of the
And
setting sun.
yeah, uh huh, exactly. And back then, I didn't think about contacting MUFON or doing anything like that. And I was a young mom and hadn't been practicing law that long, and I was like, yeah, whatever. But that was one of the first really big things that I'd seen close up, personal, and I was like, "Yep, I knew it. I knew they were real. I knew it all along." Just
I don't
proof.
need no investigation.
Yeah, but I've seen things since then too, and had some personal experiences prior to that when I was younger as well. So I know
I,
they're
I,
real. I know
I,
they're
s-
real.
I see. Well, another time we'll get into
Yeah,
because I have a whole string of questions and my contact buzzer is going off because yeah, you
I think
probably
I've
in a,
actually had personal interaction, to be honest. I have some strange memories that I probably need to be regressed and find out. But um,
so you think
yeah,
you're an experiencer?
I
Do,
do.
do
I
you?
do.
Yeah.
I do. And
Yeah,
I
I think
think that's why I've always had this deal because I remember when that movie came out. It was a Disney movie, Escape to Witch Mountain. I don't know if you ever
hmm
remember that, if your kids ever saw that, Escape to Witch Mountain. And there was a little blonde haired, blue eyed girl in there and her brother. And I remember sitting very quietly watching the movie with my grandparents because it used to be on, Disney was on Sunday nights, on ABC, NBC, whatever it was.
hmm
And it was a family event. Like everybody did it on Sunday night, right? And I remember sitting there watching, and at the end, where it's revealed that she is from another planet, I turned to my grandma. I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember turning to my grandma and I go, Grandma, she's like me. She's like me. We're the same.
Wow.
And my grandma was like, what's wrong with you?
Too many of them ginger snaps.
Something. I don't know. But I remember identifying with that at a very young age. That was like in
Mhm.
the 70s when that came out. And I don't know, something. There's something.
There is definitely something here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm. When you hang around people who are experiencers, you notice certain trends, traits. And when I did Victoria's Secret Truth, the reason that I did that book is that I convinced Victoria. It took me a year to convince Victoria that she had a story because her memory was fragmented such that she couldn't piece together the big picture. But
Mm-hmm.
as I got to know her, I first met her at a UFO conference. The little snippets I got, I just went, well, there's a story here. You're obviously hiding something or your memory's blocked.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took me a year to convince her that the reason we wanted to do the book is because there are people out there that think they're crazy because they've had these experiences. And there aren't a lot of books out there that are one-on-one. Well, there's Communion and a few others, but their slant isn't towards helping the reader.
Mm-hmm.
And so I convinced Victoria, we're going to write this book to convince the reader or to help the reader. And it turns out that two people that were very, very close to me professionally, after they read the book, came
Mm-hmm.
forward and said,
Oh, wow.
mm-hmm, I've got a story I want to tell you. And
Mm-hmm.
it blew me away. And then I thought, well, I got to dig deeper because, I mean, you brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that one person their children also each individually suspect, because I've had a chance to talk to them. And here's the mind blower. The other, who has two children, they all have the same identical scoop mark.
Oh, oh, where they've been
Well, um,
they've been
if
examined.
we haven't alienated your entire listening audience, many people who have had abduction experiences will discover that very near a bone, usually the shin or the arm, it looks like a baby spoon has been taken and a small scoop of flesh has been removed.
Mm.
Generally, it's about the size of a thumbnail. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look in Victoria's Secret Truth, she allowed me to
Mm-hmm.
photograph hers.
Oh, she did.
So
I
it's
don't know
in the
if I saw
book.
that.
Well, the one friend came forward and said to me, I just read your book. I want to tell you, I've been an experiencer since I've been a child, and so are my children. And
Ooh.
it took me a long time, a couple of years of just because she hates it. She won't talk about it, but I finally got to her to agree to an interview where she admitted that she and both of her children have this very obvious scoop mark.
Oh, wow. Well, you say that, and I told you earlier I was asking my dad questions, and he tells a story about, and I may butcher this, um, that when he was a young man, young boy, he delivered papers, and they got up at the crack of dawn. Well, they got up before dawn, so they could throw them out by dawn. And so it's like I don't know 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. He did this before school, and he was out. I think he said on his bike, pedaling through, doing his papers or whatever. And he said all of a sudden, like the sky just kind of blacked out. There was something huge coming, and there was like some light that just came very slowly and scanned the neighborhood with this light,
Wow.
and then just kept on going.
Wow.
And I was like, huh, this goes back a ways. This goes back a ways because my dad, and he may, who knows, he may have been an experiencer and he doesn't even know it, and it just passes on to the next generation and the
It
next
tends to be
generation.
generational. That's
Yeah.
that's my
Mm-hmm.
not experience, but that's
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've garnered by researching this for many years.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, my
it could
daughter
be.
would not go in her bedroom alone. She's like, Mommy, there's monsters in there. I'm not going. And I don't know if she was seeing ghosts or demons or gray aliens or what she might have been seeing in there. But she would, when she was little, you could not. She would not sleep by herself. She wouldn't go in her room. That child would, no. Certain rooms in the house, she would not go alone. Nope.
This is another good sign of
Uh huh.
that.
Uh huh.
Did you ever, now that you know, did
Yeah.
you ever inspect her to see if she had any signs, typically there'll be like a triangular shape where there's three pinpoints of something, or a scoop mark, or there's a rash that you can't explain.
Well, she has rashes all the time. But I one time had a dream that I was somewhere else. And I can't remember the details, but I remember waking but I woke up out of it like that going, "Oh my god, I was with aliens."
Hmm.
And I instinctively looked at my stomach, and right there where the pubic hair starts was a triangular red, a tiny little teeny little reddish triangle.
See, I'm not making stuff up.
Yeah, it was there. And I mean,
No.
I don't know who knows, but I never noticed it before. I shower twice a day, you know,
Well, that's good to know.
and I like being clean. Um, but all of a sudden, literally, like I woke up out of a dead sleep. So I don't know. Some people, and how do you feel about this? Because some people think they're beings from another planet. Some think they come from inner Earth. Some people think they're demons. What is your take?
Before I answer that, let's finish off the other topic. In the book, Victoria's Secret Truth,
I
there's a photograph of a man's hand, and on that hand, you will see a triangular shape.
was
He
looking through here.
he had an abduction at a UFO conference and came to the experiencer session the next morning, jabbering like it was his last day on planet Earth, showing everybody this mark on his hand. And somebody, other people in the
Like this one?
audience knew him as, uh,
I
I
can't tell.
think
Wait a minute. Let me see. I can't tell what that is.
I wrote that
Oh
book.
yeah, it says top of the hand photo.
There it is.
Uh-huh. Of
Yeah.
an experiencer
It's
session. Yeah.
triangular shape, and other people knew him, having been a long time experiencer. But that's not the only time I've seen that mark on somebody who claims to be an experiencer. So the chances of you having had a real experience have gone up significantly because of the physical evidence. But anyway, I just wanted to close that out with the fact that other people have come forward and shown me or given me photographs of their stuff. So
Hmm. Okay, this one is really scary.
yes.
See, that's when you think, okay, this is about either, could this just be demons or a bad nightmare? Or, is there really creatures that look like that?
That is what Victoria described as
Whew,
the people who attended her while they were removing her eggs.
they look demonic to me.
Well, they were insectoids, and then the little grays were the guys that were like, almost the hired help. But the doctor was always a tall mantis, or she called it an insectoid. She used that interchangeably. Yeah, I
I
know.
don't want to see those.
I know. And I've been lucky enough to be able to
Oh,
make
here's your
friends
scoop
with
mark.
people.
Here's your scoop mark.
There's her scoop mark, yes.
Yeah, I don't think I have any of those, thank goodness.
Well, one never knows. Um, when I talk to people like Barbara Lamb and those that do this for a living, they always tell me, because people ask me about it, they say, look, at if your acquaintance who is undergoing these things is okay, they're stable with it, and they've found some way to mitigate this problem, then don't get a regression. But if
Mm-hmm.
they're really bothered by it, like my one friend with the two children who have the scoop marks, she's had night terrors her whole
Mm,
life.
mm,
And so she would be a really good candidate if, she's not been able to come to terms with it.
mm-hmm.
So from that point forward, I tell people who ask me,
Mm-hmm.
should I get a regression? And I go, if you sleep well at night and you really don't care, your life is good, don't do it. Because
Right? You might learn
yeah,
something you don't want to know. You might see something you never want to see. Your brain has blocked it out for a reason.
they put a block in there for a reason. So
Yeah.
that's
Well,
basically
I even
but be,
told him one time, I said, "Hey, look, if you guys are doing stuff to me, I don't want to remember."
so you have some conscious memories. You clearly have conscious memories then. This
I
just
just put
got
it out there. When I saw that a UFO, I was like, okay, they're real. I'm like, all right, you guys, I don't want to see any creepy monsters, okay? I don't mind seeing UFOs. I'm good with that. Shiny objects, I'm all good. But I don't want to
shiny,
see any
shiny object.
creepy monsters. No.
Excuse me.
Oh, I
That
don't
was
want anything with
hilarious.
big eyes coming at me. No, no, no. Not unless I got a ray gun. So you better give me a ray gun if I get
Oh,
to.
wait. I have a ray gun. Wait. I haven't even taken it out of its box yet.
Mm, nice. Oh, yeah, perfect. There you go. See?
I've got my
Oh
ray
my
gun
gosh.
handy.
Well, we only have 3 minutes left.
Oh, that's terrible. Um, okay, well, you had asked me another question, and we'll have to get to it next time. What I
All
thought
right.
about everything, but yeah, the thing goes on. So,
Yeah,
uh,
but I love it. And, thank you for taking the time to research this and, put out honest material that's not propaganda, that's not backed by silliness. And giving people real stories about real things that happen to people and helping getting this information out there to everybody.
thank you. And I think what separates me from everybody else is they do it for a living, and they have to make everything uh, heighten it. Let's jack it up, the excitement. Let's make it more
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And then they start to fabricate to do that. And I've caught many of the people who are top names uh, putting false things in books intentionally that I've been able to prove. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
saying the president was here when he wasn't, all kinds of things, but they have to do it because they make their living that way. I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that. I don't.
Yeah.
This is sensational enough without
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it even more sensational.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we both know it's real. And I hope that I've been able to advance the understanding of this and make a better world for the people who struggle with it.
Yeah.
And they can look to my works and go, I'm not the only one. I know I can contact MUFON or send a report here or do something. There's an avenue, or my email's there. People drop me a line all the time, and I try to get them pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and I appreciate that. Are you going to the MUFON symposium in July?
Well, that only depends on one person.
I don't know. We should go at least for a day. Let's talk.
We should do that.
Let's
It's
talk.
a, it's
And I can see
official.
you in person. All right.
It's official. All right.
Okay.
I'll get my ticket for Saturday.
Saturday. Okay. I'll look at Saturday then.
That's the big day. So
That's the
you're
big
good?
day. So I'll
We're
probably have to
good?
come in Friday night. Okay. Saturday. It's a deal.
Okay. Well, you let me know what your arrangements are, and then we'll work out a plan that
Okay.
maximizes our chit chat time.
Awesome. I'm so
Fabulous.
excited. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ray. I appreciate you. You're the best.
Any
You're
anytime.
awesomest.
Anytime. No, this was great. I really appreciate it. And your interviewing skills are sensational. And I love being your guest. So we'll do this again.
Thanks. I appreciate it. God bless. See you soon.
See you soon.